Hello, listeners. This is my music online class for World of Music. This video report is about Ludwig von Beethoven's Kreutzer Sonata, which is also the sonata in Op. 47. It's a duet sonata for violin and piano. It's actually a very beautiful piece. It has three movements. The first movement is the Adagio sostenuto, sostenuto, presto. The second movement is the Andante con variazioni. Sorry, my Italian's not very good. And the third is the finale, the presto. And so this is just the different rhythms and tempos and everything that it's talking about. And so this was a beautiful piece. I truly loved listening to it. And one of the really main things is that I love about it is the difference that you hear between both violin and piano when they are playing. For one, they harmonize in several different areas, but they also have a counter melody in different areas as well. They complement each other. They go against each other. They just Beethoven has mixed them extremely well, and his Kreutzer Sonata was considered just a completely different type of sonata, and was one of his better known sonatas as far as I'm concerned. And one of the things that really intrigues me when listening to it was the kind of, I believe it's called the call and answer type of style of playing, which is where the violin or piano starts, and then the opposite instrument then plays, and actually, whether it be copying it or just playing its own little area, will actually bring in. And so that it's called the call and answer because there's the first one, which is kind of like a challenge, and the opposite instrument plays and goes into the challenge. So I thought those are probably some of my favorite parts in the entire piece itself. The three movements are all very good. I think personally my favorite is the longest movement, which is the second movement, the Andante con variazioni, I think. Anyways, it's, like I said, it's beautiful. If you haven't listened to it, you should. The finale is also very good. It is the main thing that really strikes you about the finale is it begins completely differently than the other two movements. Instead of lightly going in, starting out with, whether it was starting out with piano or violin, both the first and second movement were both very, very slow tempo, and they slightly moved up and just kind of rose and kept rising, and then it would get to a very very high pitch every now and then. But in the finale, it just starts very abrupt and just goes right into the action of the piece, and I thought that was really cool as well, because it was just a change of pace. You listen to the first two movements, and then you go to the third movement, the finale, and you click play, and you expect to be just lullabied into this beautiful type of music, but then it just blasts off, and just, the violin is playing and the piano is harmonizing with it, and it's really something else. Some really interesting background information I found out is about the story and history of this. It's about a violin player known as George Bridgetower, and he's the English violin virtuoso. He came to Vienna in 1803 and met Beethoven. They played together, and Beethoven was impressed. At Bridgetower's urging, Beethoven agreed to compose a new violin sonata to be performed by the two of them at one of the celebrated morning concerts in the Garten Pavilion, run by Ignaz Schuperdlig. Bridgetower was tall and good-looking, with an eye for the ladies. He was a mulatto, his mother Polish, his father West Indian. Recognized as being of exceptional talent, he had performed for King George III at Windsor Castle, and performed for many other people. For the new sonata, Beethoven took the final movement from an earlier sonata, which he replaced later, and composed a new first and second movement. The first movement was huge, opening with solo double stopping across all four strings for the violinist. He delivered the new movements to Bridgetower only the day before the performance. A glittering audience assembled for the premiere of the new piece. The performance began in bar 35 of the first movement. Beethoven had written a huge run just for the piano, spanning several octaves. It comes in a passage marked to be repeated. In the repeat, after Beethoven executed the run, Bridgetower imitated it on the violin. Beethoven looked up from the piano in astonishment, ran across the stage, embraced Bridgetower, ran back to the piano, and continued playing, which I thought was a really funny, just picturing Beethoven running up, stopping, middle of playing, and just running up and hugging him. I thought it was really funny. Performance was a triumph. At celebrations afterwards, Beethoven announced he was dedicating the new violin sonata to Bridgetower. He wrote on top of the title page of the manuscript, Sonata per uno, lunatico. Excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. Later, the two men were drinking when Bridgetower made an off-color remark about a lady Beethoven knew. Beethoven was outraged. He demanded that Bridgetower return the manuscript of the sonata, and informed him he was withdrawing the dedication. He would dedicate it instead he told Bridgetower, to Europe's greatest violin virtuoso, who was resident in Paris. Bridgetower pleaded with Beethoven to change his mind. Beethoven was adamant. The rift between the two men was not healed before Bridgetower left Vienna, a week later to visit relatives of his mother in Poland. Beethoven and Bridgetower never met again. Long after Beethoven's death, Bridgetower, an old man, was living in a property. Basically, the people who wrote this visited Bridgetower, and he told them that this is what had happened, or had confirmed it, because this is the story that they had been told, and he did in fact confirm it. The violin virtuoso in Paris, to whom Beethoven sent the sonata, Rudolf Kreutzer, whose name adorns the greatest violin sonata Beethoven ever composed, the Kreutzer Sonata. So next time you hear a performance of the Kreutzer Sonata, spare a thought for a man who gave its first performance, and whom I should really be named, or who it should be really be named, George Bridgetower. One final point that I thought was kind of interesting is when Kreutzer received the manuscript in Paris, he looked at it and declared it impossible to play. Beethoven does not understand the violin, he said, and he never once performed it in public. The sonata that day bears his name. I just thought this was a really interesting story and amazing background to just have for this specific piece, because it was just the fact that it wasn't originally given to Kreutzer and was for Bridgetower, but that to think of someone excuse me, to think of someone like Beethoven just to be like a normal type of person who, went out celebrating after performing a sonata and was drinking with his fellow performer, and a comment was traded, and he immediately didn't like him and just totally gave just from that one remark gave the dedication to someone else. I just thought it was a really interesting story. Some more interesting facts. One is that Beethoven himself said that the sonata is written in a virtuoso style, like a concerto. And a violinist by the name of Rob Capillo was in an interview talking about the Kreutzer sonata. He talks about the first movement. Violinists never like to program this piece, he says, because it is one of the most excruciatingly nerve-wracking beginnings. To play these awkward, slow chords, what comes after that is even more extraordinary. And you'll actually hear what he's talking about in this very beginning